Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. The Cisco Kid is having a ball. It's time for Must Have Seen TV, the podcast dedicated to the sitcoms of the 20th century. From Make Room for Daddy to Sabrina the Teenage Witch. I'm your TV guide, Brett White. And say hello to the toot toot to my tweet, Ethan K. Hello, Ethan.
How dare you call me that?
The toot toot to tweet.
Toot to tweet.
That's it.
That's pretty. I'll take it. Hey, Brett.
Hey, welcome. I will start off by mentioning, acknowledging the sad news that Martin Mull, one of my personal heroes, passed away last week sometime. I figure we will talk more about it because we have a Sabrina the Teenage Witch episode lined up for this.
Yeah.
This run.
It was very sad. What I liked about the obituary coverage. Oh, hey!
I have my I'm Everyone I've Ever Loved album cover, which I recreated on my Instagram.
I was gonna say what I liked about the coverage was it gave a lot of space to his art career in fine arts. The story that I can share was I heard from a coworker who went to college with him, and they just always called him Marty, which I thought was great. But when he was in art school, Martin Mull set up clandestinely an art show in the bathroom of a museum in Boston. Might have been like Museum of Fine Arts. And he put his work on the walls, and he brought in hors d'oeuvres, and he served them in the bathroom because he wanted to have a showing at this museum, and so he snuck everything in and then had this reception in the men's room of this museum in Boston. So R.I.P. Also, Shelley Duvall passed away.
Oh God, yeah,
that was today. So you can date this podcast by
but no, yeah, we'll have more on because I think Martin Mull's in that episode of Sabrina. He was on like for a couple of seasons. But I mean, I have a mustache. He had a mustache.
He had a mustache?
Famously so.
Absolutely hilarious.
I know that he did read my review of The Cool Kids. Which him and Vicki Lawrence and Leslie Jordan and David Alan Grier, I guess, all read. So that was nice.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that sucks. On a good news front though, hold on. If you're watching via video, I'm not in drag, but I still have something to show off.
Brett is leaning back on his chair and grabbing something. He's grabbing a remote control.
Oh, that's the one without batteries.
He grabbed a remote control that didn't have any batteries.
I brought back my family television from 1990, which is a Sony Trinitron KV 1926R. There it is right there. It is about twice the size of the old TV that I had in here, Howard. So I am excited, but I can only watch static on it right now because I cannot get the TV to channel 3.
Oh.
Because channel 3 is not programmed in. And on old Sony televisions, you need a remote that has an enter button.
Oh, so
because you have to hit 03 enter. And so I bought universal remotes, which shockingly enough, this universal remote works on a 34-year-old television, which is just crazy to me.
That's wild.
Doesn't have an enter button or even an analogous enter button. I've hit every button. And TVs this old, I don't believe, had menus either. So there's no way to like access a menu and then hit like an auto program channel thing. Like I have to actually. So I've ordered some vintage remotes.
Ooh.
So I'm like excited. I'm honestly waiting to watch the next episode of The Acolyte on that.
Oh,
so
it's grainy glory, three-color glory.
That'll probably be Sunday. I don't know. Okay, we'll see. But yeah, that's my life.
At the start of the show, we want to remind everybody that we are on Patreon, that we are raising money to hire an editor who will take out a lot of the crosstalk, the dead air, the uhs, the ums, the ers, all of that stuff. But what do you get for subscribing to our Patreon? My God, you get You don't get My God. You get
Oh, he's
a bonus
Ethan's god.
episode. You get a bonus episode of Must Have Now TV, which is Brett and I discussing the latest TV that we're watching. Because, this podcast only goes through the 20th century. There's
Yeah.
stuff that's happened since 1999.
Although, I mean, I think we regret most of the stuff that's happened since 1999.
Um, so we talk about that. We talk about things that we're enjoying. We give recommendations for cool stuff, and we're just as funny and charming as we are during the regular podcast.
Yeah.
But you can
Except this
only
time you get to hear us talk about the Righteous Gemstones, or the Acolyte, or Bluey,
hey,
or G.I.
hey,
Joe.
hold up now, Brett. That's content that they have to access through
Zip.
Patreon. You just
Zip.
gave away the whole show.
And once we figure out the ins and outs of Patreon, we're also planning on, video content, live streams, blog posts, honestly, just whatever we can cook up with and actually fit into our schedules. But blog posts at the barest of minimums.
Right now, the issue is there are login problems with Patreon that are preventing me from getting on.
Listen,
But if you have been,
which is Patreon's fault. Let's be honest. Why every single Patreon page has a member and you have a creator profile. So every single email has two accounts associated with it. And if you're in the window where your podcast email is open and you hit Patreon, it's going to log you in on the Patreon's email instead of your own personal. It's a whole thing. I'm just saying, get rid of emails, get rid of passwords.
internet is dead. Dead internet theory. So,
But no, yeah.
But now I do have access to our YouTube account. So I have been trying to comment when people reply to when comments that people are leaving. Do you want to, Brett? Do you want to go through any of those right now? I don't have any.
Yeah, on our Make Room for Daddy. Let's make it creepy. Make room for Daddy. A trip to Wisconsin episode. We had Shelley Wood wrote that was one of our best. Thank you very much. When I watched the Make Room for Daddy episode, I was caught up in being annoyed at Danny for being a self-centered jerk. But you guys turned my attitude around, and now I appreciate the episode and the Baraboo info. The Baraboo info was hilarious too. Much love for Rusty Hammer. I remember this sitcom from reruns, and he was always amazingly good. Yes, that was a fun episode, and finding out spoiler alert, I did not look up to see what Russia thought of this episode of the Munsters, unfortunately.
Is that a preview for what you did look up for this episode?
I didn't look up anything, man. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's gotcha. But thank you for the comment. I had a very skewed opinion of Make Room for Daddy. I thought it was kind of a bland show, like the Donna Reed show.
Oh yeah.
But it really blew me away as just being ahead of its time and really fantastic. And I might go back and give that one a couple more watches. It really was.
I would say Make Room for Daddy rips.
Yeah.
It shreds.
Yeah. It eats.
No crumbs were left by Mr. Thomas. Any other business before we hop into our time machine?
I am really excited to talk about this episode because I have opinions on the Munsters.
I do too, honestly. This week we'll be traveling to September 23rd, 1965. Asterisk, this is part of our summer series, which, since sitcoms don't air in the summer, means episodes that aired in the fall that are vacation themed. Sort of. September 23rd, 1965. How to Murder Your Wife rolled the box office. Eve of Destruction by Barry Maguire topped the charts. And CBS aired the Munsters episode, Herman the Master Spy. Ethan, you must have seen Herman the Master Spy before today.
I haven't. No, I haven't. Wow. I haven't seen this one before. I've seen a couple Munsters episodes in my time, like most of us have. It was very heavily syndicated.
Well, and I think also, let's be honest, if you grow up with our specific proclivities, you're gonna watch the Munsters.
Yeah, if you like monsters, like sci-fi, you're gonna know the Addams Family. You're gonna know the Munsters.
Yeah.
I gotta say, for me, the Munsters was more accessible than the Addams Family.
Addams Family did not hit Nick at Night until way later. I think Addams Family was actually a TV Land show, but Munsters was a Nick at Night show. Munster Mondays, Blockbuster Summer, baby. So I watched the Munsters way more than Addams Family as a child.
Munsters was also on during the day, during the afternoon if you were homesick. When I was
Mm.
growing up, you could turn on the Munsters and you'd find a fun episode of that.
But
Um,
I will say that, and I think I've discussed this before on the podcast. I'm an Adams Family person, and you have to
you
be one or the other.
are, yeah.
You have to lean one way or the other, and I am an Adams Family person through and through.
And I lean the same direction as you do, Brett. I okay. So if you ask if this episode is good, I will say it does its job. Because the way that I look at it is the Munsters is a kid show.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
It's a
yeah.
kid show, and it doesn't try to be anything more than a kid show. It's got the goofy little gags. It's very silly. It's big characters. All of them have their own personalities that is baked into their costume. But
Yeah,
it's a
they
kids
walk
program.
you up to the joke. They just like,
Yeah.
here, come on. Like it's very,
The delivery is slow. The delivery is very deliberate. You don't feel like, unlike Danny Thomas, you feel like there is zero improvisation on this show.
oh yeah.
And I think the
Whereas
most,
I will say, I think Adam's Family has a lot of that. Has a lot of, it feels a little bit weirder and a little bit more spontaneous.
yeah.
It feels like the indie rock compared to the Munsters glam rock or something.
And so if you're watching Munsters as a kid, you can love the Munsters. There's a lot to love about the Munsters. It believe me, it's wall to wall laugh track. Even when nothing is happening, it is getting kids laughing. It is a funny show. And I think that is why any reboots of the Munsters that try to take it even a little bit seriously
Yeah.
destined to failure.
I don't need, you can read my review of the Rob Zombie Munsters movie from like 2 years ago on Decider. I did not like that movie in the slightest. I found it painful.
Well, there was
Ugh.
there was a lot there was a lot of follow-ups to this. So you had the
Oh,
Munsters that only lasted 2 seasons, 1964 to 1966.
and then you have Munsters Today in the late
Well, wait,
80s.
wait, wait, wait. Munster Go Home
Oh, right, the
was the
movies.
movie. Munster's Revenge, 1988. Here Come the Munsters, 1995. The Munsters Scary Little Christmas, 1996. Then you got Munsters Today, which lasted 2 episodes. Well,
Longer,
6 episodes, 2 episodes. It lasted longer than the original series.
which is wild because the Adams Family's 90s reboot also lasted slightly longer than the original series. It's
Uh,
crazy the parallels.
you had the animated mini Munsters in
Hmm.
1973. Then back in 2012, you had 1313 Mockingbird Lane
Brian Fuller trying to make it into a dramedy.
with Jerry O'Connell, Portia de Rossi, Susie Izzard. Again, taking it too seriously. It's all it is just a way to serve up monster jokes. That's all it is.
Yeah.
If you do anything else with it, it is destined to hit the wrong way.
Well, and also if you try to explain anything, because honestly, like Munsters is like a Frankenstein and a Dracula lady. They have a wolf as a son. Hey, like whereas Adam's Family has a little bit more of a mythology baked into it because like this is
Yeah.
just a spooky family. They're not pre-existing monsters. So like, and also like the comedy styles again, like I think you could control F a Munsters script and replace Lily with Donna or something. And
Yeah.
it still is mostly a Donna Reed show script or something, or, you
Yeah.
know, except there are monsters, and that's usually where the comedy comes in. Whereas like Adam's Family is like the scripts have a baked in weirdness just in terms of like the dialogue that all the Adamses say and like the specifics they use and it's a weirder show.
Yeah. It was created by Norm Liebman and Ed Haas, who are writers of Rocky and Bullwinkle. So
Mm,
that's kind of like some of that kids show. And the producers were also the same producers of Leave It to
yeah,
Beaver.
that's where the vibe comes in.
And it was really meant to be a spoof of, like you said, Donna Reed. It was
Yeah.
it created to be,
Well,
let's say, Donna Reed, but the characters themselves are a little goofy.
and because I tried to research and find out which came first, Adam's Family or the Munsters. And the truth is like they both, it's just something in the water at that time. Because like
6 days.
they
Six
both
days
were like
difference.
also like pitched around the same time. They're both based on older IP because this is a Universal show, and it is specifically Universal being like, we got all these monster IP, like let's
Yeah.
turn it into a family. Whereas Adams is pulling from cartoons that were being printed around the same time as the Universal monster movies. Like
Yeah.
it is crazy how intertwined the two shows are.
Six
Uh
days. They both lasted 2 seasons and
yeah.
aired in 6 days of each other
For
on different.
two for the exact, and then they both had a cartoon in the 70s, TV movies, and then a reboot series that both of them lasted like an episode or two longer than their originals.
It's hard to
It's
place the
just
number of
bizarre.
episodes for the Munsters because it's, let's say, the core series is 68 episodes, but then they filmed 4 different pilots,
Oh, right, yeah.
which is they totally different cast except for Al Lewis and Fred Gwynne for the first one. And then they got a better cast for the second one. And then they kept changing Eddie Munster, and there was these were all filmed in color.
Yeah. And then
And then
finally,
and finally the TV show's in black and white because the who was it? Was it CBS or ABC? CBS. Um CBS didn't want to pay $10,000 an episode for color, so it's in black and white.
just, it tracks. It makes sense for a Universal monster movie kind of vibe. Um,
Ultimately, this was put against after Batman.
yeah.
It went against Batman at the same time slot, ABC
Well, I
versus
think
CBS.
Adam's Family aired on the other night Batman. Because I think Adam's Family was up against the other Batman. Because it aired twice a week.
It had higher ratings than the Addams Family.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
but yeah, it did. Munsters had everything going for it until Batman came along in color,
Yeah.
and
And
just ate.
also being a better show.
Yeah,
But yeah, this week on Must Have Seen TV, we'll be talking about the Munsters episode Herman, the Master Spy. It's the second episode of season 2, and it was written by Douglas Tibbles and directed by Ezra Stone, who I got a ton of info on just in my head. Here's how Peacock describes the episode. Herman decides to try out his diving equipment while at the ocean. Ethan, how accurate is that description?
that does happen in the episode.
That is the
That is a
first
thing. That is
five
a thing that
minutes, and
happens.
then Jesus Christ. Do you have anything on Douglas Tibbles?
I don't have anything on Douglas Tibbles, but I do have something on the composer of the theme.
Ooh.
So
It is an iconic theme. And man, Adam's Family also iconic theme.
this is going to blow your mind. So it was written by Jack Marshall, um, who might know because he arranged the song Fever for Peggy Lee, which
Hmm.
was just a bass, drums, and finger clicks. But he's the father of Frank Marshall. Frank Marshall, who produced Indiana Jones in Jurassic Park, and
Jesus.
is married to Kathleen Kennedy, and is part founded Amblin Entertainment with Steven
Oh my
Spielberg.
God. So Kathleen Kennedy's father-in-law wrote the Munsters theme song?
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Man, if that is not what you walk down the aisle to, why are you even marrying into that family?
Here comes Kathleen. Here comes Kathleen.
It is weird. It's weird how like rockabilly, like surf rock, was it really tied to monster culture before the Munsters?
It's hard to say. I
But it
don't know.
does, it feels like the Munsters the place where these two things latched on, and now like they're inextricable.
I'm thinking about like what I know about surf music, and answer is I don't know.
It's kind of so like also like surf guitar and stuff is also Christmas music, which which is only kind of because a lot of seminal Christmas records were recorded in the 50s and 60s, And then when artists cover them decades later, oftentimes they're like, "Oh, we'll keep that surf guitar." So now, like when I hear like the Ventures, it also sounds like Jingle Bells or something, you know. Uh,
Yeah.
but Ezra Stone, I know a lot. I've talked about him a bunch on this podcast already because he was the original stage director of This Is the Army, the
Hmm.
Irving Berlin's World War II All Army review that featured a whole lot of drag performers, soldiers in drag, including Hayden Rourke and Justice Addis, who I've done multiple episodes on, and I'm still, yes, in theory, working on the book, but mental health and personal crises delay even the most pure of projects.
Well, if we want to
Um,
throw in another drag element into this, if you just want to kind of talk about some of the cast, Fred Gwynne, who played Herman Munster, um, started out in Harvard. He was the president of Harvard Lampoon. He was a cartoonist for Harvard Lampoon,
oh,
and he was a member of the Hasty Pudding Club, which is a dramatic society known for its drag performances. Um,
hasty pudding.
Hasty Pudding Club. So he was a Harvard man through and through. He shares the president of the Harvard Lampoon title with Conan O'Brien.
Colin Jost? Like, I don't know, is he one of them? That's wild. Uh,
Um, so he started off acting. His first big role was in the water on the waterfront, but he had two guest spots on the Phil Silvers show.
hmm,
Um, I think it was Nat Hiken liked him on that and put him up for Car 54 Where Are You?
where he first co-starred with Al Lewis.
Who played Grandpa Munster in this. Uh, I have a note, unknown age, because he lied about his age constantly and lied about pretty much his entire background.
That's fun.
Um,
That's so fun, you
but he
know?
does have a burlesque vaudeville jokey on stage. I want to say he just kind of like played grandpa for the rest of his life.
Yeah,
Is this what he wanted to do? Um, Super left wing,
hell yeah.
ran on the Green Party ticket for governor of New York. Um,
And he didn't
1998.
win?
He did not win. He
Come
got like
on.
less than 2% of
Come
the
on.
uh but yeah. So yeah. Those crazy kooky folks.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I guess we hop right into
Yeah.
the episode, which has a cold open, which is the Munsters family getting ready to go to the beach. Was it Paradise Cove or something?
Yeah. It's the first line is Eddie, get your surfboard in the car. We're ready for the beach. And the laugh tracks, ha! I was like, why is the laugh track going? That wasn't even a. And through the rest of the episode, if there's no line, you'll hear just like it goes consistently. Entire episode, it is all laugh track.
It's like I don't know, the inventor of the laugh track was someone's relative. Like, we want to give him a lot of royalties.
Yeah, just put it in there. Put it
But
wherever.
they're bringing this is classic Munsters like humor. They make sure to bring a jar full of ants because they would hate to have a picnic without them. You know, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was like the only part that I was like, oh, this is them purposely being creepy.
Yeah.
Like an Adams Family kind of creepy, like, oh, we can't go to the beach without the ants.
Yeah.
Um, and the surfboard is shaped like a coffin lid
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I mean, Herman's bringing along his scuba gear.
in a bag labeled Captain Kidd.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, of course.
And is that the cold open?
That's the cold open. It's
Is
very
there,
blunt.
I'm like, is there anything else that happens in it?
There aren't many jokes. I mean,
Yeah.
the laugh track went crazy when Fred Gwynne carried a very large bag out to the car. I
Which,
guess that was a joke.
funny. The opening credits sequence for season 2. Season 1 is all of them coming down the stairs, right? And
Yeah,
getting a peck on the cheek from Lily.
the
And then
reason for that was there was a parody of the Donna Reed show
yes.
opening.
Yeah.
But what happened was The actor who played Marilyn, Beverly
Hmm.
Owens, this I should have double checked this, but what I read about it was Beverly Owens didn't want to film in LA. She had a boyfriend that she was completely over head over heels with in New York,
Of
and she would not
course.
stop crying about the fact, and then literally crying, like she would be on the set crying and about the fact that they were so far apart. And after 15 episodes, the rest of the cast is like, look, she's really unhappy. Do we need to have her here? They released her from her contract. Beverly Owens went and married this guy. They divorced 8 years later. She never acted again. Um,
Was it worth it, Beverly?
I don't know, but instead they got Pat Priest, who played um, Marilyn for the rest of the show. She replaced her after 14 episodes. Pat Priest was the daughter of Ivy Baker Priest, who you might remember the name might remember if you handled currency from 1953 to 1961 because she was the U.S. treasurer under Dwight Eisenhower. And her signature is on every bill. Um,
God, so the monsters really were in our lives.
yeah, so she did some good roles. She did Easy Come Easy Go with Elvis, and then she just got out of the business. Owned, I think she still owns an antique store. She
Okay. But she
flips
also hit
houses.
that convention circuit,
Yep, doing that too.
you know,
So
getting on
that's why
that.
they changed it after Beverly Owens left to include Pat Priest, and now it's just it's much more it's much less situationy. It's just here are all the cast.
Yeah, like Herman comes out first by bursting through the front
Yep.
door, and then it's everyone else coming out one by one. They all have a little bit of business. Eddie's carrying a huge baseball bat, and of course he walks with it horizontal, can't get through, and
Yeah.
that
It's
banger of a theme song. Banger of a theme song.
theme song best part about this.
Yeah, and the aesthetic. Like I don't want to like, you don't really watch Munsters for the plot or the scripts. Not even
No.
really for two-thirds of the performances. Um, I think you watch it for the vibe, like what it has. And I think that I've said this, and every time we talked about the Munsters, is like it has immaculate vibes. It knows exactly what it is. It is the kind of like the foundation of Halloween culture, like a recognizable Halloween aesthetic that is still vibrant today. Uh,
I'm wearing a Creature from the Black Lagoon famous
yeah,
monster filmland shirt in celebration of the fact that shows like Adam's Family and the Munsters and all their goofy like animated series and stuff invaded the American consciousness, and it's something that we enjoy every day
and
in some
I think that's why it's always shocking that it only lasted 2 seasons, because the influence of the Munsters, and I would I would actually say to a lesser extent the Addams Family, it's still felt today. I think because something like Munsters is like they're swinging for the totems. Like it's like it is a Frankenstein's monster. It is a Dracula. It
yeah.
is a Wolfman. Like it is like they are very. It's a vampire. Keep saying it's a Dracula. But like so like it's whereas Addams Family feels a little bit. It's a little more idiosyncratic. It's just a little bit more just, just weird, which
It's weird.
I love.
It goes for those like torture and historic and it
Yeah,
get more context where
it's more
Munster is like,
cerebral in a weird way. I mean,
it
it's just
is.
like here's a cousin who's just a ball of hair. Like
Yeah. And Munsters is like, okay, what can we do with a Dracula?
it's funny
Okay.
to see a Dracula at
Yes.
the beach. So let's talk about like so we get a little bit of beach business, and this is where you really cannot get hung up on what are the rules of the monsters, because Lillian and Grandpa are out in the sunlight, like just
That was dealt with in
getting.
the first season. There
Oh wait,
was
did they establish that
They
they
did
aren't?
establish why they could go out in the sun in the first season.
They all have amulets like on Angel. No,
I he's a mad scientist in his spare time. He did something like I didn't watch it. I just read about it. I'm
that's
like, okay.
hilarious. Because the Addams Family always did moon bathing.
Yeah.
which I love.
Nice.
So yeah, so they're at the beach, and now I just want to like pause and just thank the cast of the Munsters for doing this and for enduring what had to have been one of the worst days on set ever,
Because of the
because
sand?
they're all they're at an actual beach. That isn't a set, right? It looks like they're outside.
Oh, I thought they were on a set.
Oh man.
I thought they were on a set because they did not film the whole thing. They only filmed it for one
From one
particular.
of the, yeah. Well, but either way, like it is either way, like so Herman, so Fred Gwynne specifically is like wearing his Herman costume and then or at least his Herman padding, and then over that a scuba suit
Yeah.
in sand and later water under lights or the sun. Like I was like I hope he was hydrated.
Oh, Fred Gwynne was 6'5"
And wearing
and
platforms,
wearing 4-inch platforms. He
which
towers over everybody on
which
this
are
set.
turned into flippers, which I thought was a funny little visual
Yeah.
gag. Is that his flippers are his just his normal shoes with a flip on the end of them.
He's going to he just wants to go scuba diving. Meanwhile, there was a joke about, oh, we got here and everyone is running off. Must be a jellyfish scare.
Yeah, those omnipresent jellyfish scares. Uh Grandpa and little Eddie are both wearing the typical old-timey short sleeve short onesie striped bathing onesies.
Meanwhile, Lily is also wearing a one piece and she is a smoke show.
Yeah. It is
Absolutely.
wild. It's almost a meta joke in itself. Like there is the meta joke of like the most beautiful one they all think is like homely or whatever because she
Yeah,
isn't a monster.
Marilyn.
But there's a meta joke on top of that where it's like not only do the monsters in canon think that she's homely, the show doesn't do anything with her. It's almost like the producers, the writers and directors of the Munsters have Pat Priest, who is gorgeous, and she doesn't do
She
anything.
does. I've never seen an episode where she does something.
And like that is also hilarious.
It's true. It's true. They do a lot with Yvonne DiCarlo as Lily.
Who
Because
herself was like she was a huge burlesque dancer or
well, she
something
started
or
off as a she did a lot of dancing. She started
yeah.
off as a dancer, um, and a pinup model,
Yeah, that was her thing.
but she did movies in, let's
Yeah.
say, 10 years before this, 15 years before this. She was a big star. Like, she was her big break was in Salome When She Danced in 1945, Crisscross with Tony Curtis in 1949. Um, but she was Sephora Moses's wife in the Ten Commandments, 1950.
Oh, I never
Uh,
recognized that.
she she was lobbying really the studio was lobbying hard for her to be nominated for Best Supporting Actress. Her ego said, I should be lead actress, best
For
actress
10 Commandments?
for Ten
Okay.
Commandments. Uh, the Academy probably would have given her a nomination for Best Supporting Actress, but not for lead actress. So she did not get the nomination for that. But she was she did a lot of movies. There were a
Yeah.
lot, like she was constantly working. So when she did the Munsters, it was like, oh, we have this huge star who's, bowing to us and
Yeah.
graciously allowing herself to do television. Which I guess led to some friction with the rest of the cast that she was a little came off as standoffish, but then she kind of got over that. But yeah, huge star.
Which is
Um,
another kind of comparison point with the Addams family because Carolyn Jones was the big star. And she was like, I think she's billed first on the Addams family. She was like top
yeah.
of the call sheet. And so it's like Fred Gwynne and John Aston are just like the weirdo comedians who get to be the husbands.
And if you want to throw in another
Dickens and
Lucasfilm,
Finster with Car 54, where are you?
if you want to throw in another weird Lucasfilm connection, she recorded an album that was orchestrated by John Williams.
Oh, I was hoping you were going to say she was on the Star Wars Christmas album. She's singing what do you get a Wookiee for Christmas when he already has a comb.
What do you
Um
get?
so yeah, so Herman goes out swimming. Oh, also like Lily Munster's bathing suit is like a strawberry shortcake,
Yeah,
like
the little sleep bonnet.
sleep bonnet thing, black pantyhose under like a kind of
A roughly one piece.
yeah, sure. You know, again, they all had to be incredibly uncomfortable. Just like worst day on set. Like that's why the beach scene doesn't last that long.
Because and it's even worse for Al Lewis as grandpa, because Eddie says that grandpa wants to be buried in the sand, and grandpa's like, make sure you bury me deep so the dogs don't get me, which is not a good joke. Don't laugh at that. It was not a good, no, it was a bad joke.
I love it. I don't know. Al Lewis can kind of say anything and I'm gonna love it.
His delivery is so vaudeville
I know.
burlesque.
I love it.
It's so slow and hacky. But he
But
does get buried in the sand. And I'm like,
it's
that's
like
gotta
full
be
on
so
buried in the sand because he also like stands up to get out of the sand and he was really buried in that sand. And also his head was covered by a bucket. And when they're like, "Where's Herman? Oh my God, where's Herman? We got to find Grandpa first." And they like remove the bucket, and he has a cigar in his mouth, and he's like smoke. So it's like Al Lewis is smoking a cigar with his head in a bucket while
dumb.
buried under sand in a
Al
vampire look.
MVP Al Lewis for smoking in a bucket, buried in the sand.
Yeah, wild.
There's also some joke about call in your father, or he has to. It's time to eat the wolf burgers.
Oh yeah, they're grilling
Um,
wolf burgers,
that's just it
which
was
again has got to
sad.
be. I mean, your son is right there, you know, and he's got the pointy ears on a widow's peak. I mean, are you like, I don't know.
How do we know he's their first son?
Oh God.
Uh,
And so yeah, Herman. Do we then find out? Oh, I think it's that Act One ends with like the Russian. Oh, okay. I actually forgot to mention that for some reason, multiple times during the first beginning of the show, we keep hearing news reports about how there's a Russian trawler out there, but it is like the safe 3 hours, like 3 miles away, and they say
yeah.
they're just fishing. Back to the new, like, just and so it ends with the Russians were now on their ship, and they bring in the net of fish and drop it, and Herman's in there,
Yeah.
and this is where Fred Gwynne is like soaked to the bone in a scuba suit in Herman Munster padding, covered
Yeah.
with a whole bunch of fish, including he has the goggles and very cartoony has like the water line in his goggles with a fish right at his eye.
Yeah. He had to be so uncomfortable.
That's just it's a nightmare. That feels. I mean, like I try to picture like getting in a pool in drag, and I'm like, no, that seems like a
No,
nightmare.
no. Imagine putting on all of your heaviest clothing, adding some padding to it,
Yeah,
with long pants, long sleeves,
and
and,
huge platform boots,
and a big fake plastic head,
and
and
then
then
jump
getting
in.
wet.
God,
Like, yeah,
nightmare.
maybe he
So
VP. Also, in every scene with the Russians, they play Volga Boltman like constantly. Down, 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 down. So you have that competing with the nonstop laugh track. It is a cacophony. It
and
is
every now and then they subtitle what the Russians are saying. The first scene is with the Russians is Herman trying to communicate by first speaking in Spanish and speaking in French, and they don't understand that. Then when he finally like says something in English, they're like, "Oh, you speak English? Okay, great."
we learned English from watching Dobie Gillis.
Toby Gillis, great. We love that. We love a nice callback.
Now, I didn't know if they were spies or not. I actually don't think they were spies.
No, I mean, good cover with the fishing. Like they were taking that fishing very seriously with all that fish they caught.
I think
Uh,
there's a couple times where, because the only thing that they do is they call into Moscow,
to
but
say
it's
that they
never like,
found the missing link between
yeah,
man and fish.
which I guess Russia was into. Like,
Well,
what
they
is
even say
they were
like
looking
now we're ahead in the missing link race.
like, what does that mean? It means
I don't
nothing.
know. We're laughing though, so it was a funny joke.
I'm laughing at the fact that you're laughing. You're my friend.
Okay. uh and I don't know. Wait, what are the Munsters doing back at home? Like they're trying to find Herman. It's not until okay, so I'm trying to remember the like they call Russia and say we got the Mystic Link, and then Russia's like, "No, you idiots! He's too ugly to be Mystic Link. He must be spy."
So no one's spies. No one's actually spies because obviously Herman's not a spy. The Russia thinks he's a spy. U.S. is spying on the Russians.
And therefore thinks that they've caught a spy. And then the American officer to the head of whatever is like, "Oh, and here's from the description, here's what he looks like." And I often wonder, does Frankenstein exist in this uh
Apparently
in
not.
this reality? Because
No,
they just say like they don't say he looks like he has fucking bolts in his neck and a flat top. Like
they don't
it's
say he
very
looks like.
clearly.
They just say he's very ugly.
And
Uh,
then they of course run it in the paper.
they call it a classified face if I ever saw
Oh
one.
yeah, I like yeah, that's a no, that face is classified. Yeah, that's a good. I like that was
Uh,
a good joke.
the family uses the crystal ball to try to find Herman, and
Well, for Grandpa is polishing it, saying trying to get a better reception.
uh,
Good joke. Great joke. A plus.
is it a okay? I'll give you that one. He says that he sees Herman leading communal singing. And then Lily goes, "Oh, it hasn't been the same since Spot sat on it and tried hatching it."
See, and so this delivery, Yvonne DiCarlo, legend, icon. The delivery of this line bothered me just because it was so slow.
Yeah,
Like that, like first of all, like deliver that line, but deliver it faster and just like throw it away. Oh, that hasn't been right since Spot tried to hatch it. Like just you don't need to sat on it to like it's also worded weird. It's a long
it's
phrase.
long, it's slow, and like yeah, like hey, she's a legend. Great career. Her performance was just like she doesn't rise above the material.
See, here we go. What? Okay, take the cast of Make Room for Daddy, replace Danny Thomas with Fred Gwynne and Al Lewis, but keep that wife who we loved, and keep at least the son that we loved. Like those are good actors. Like it's give like what I'm saying is the Munsters, Fred Gwynne and Al Lewis needed some people to match their freak.
Yes. Yes, they could
Because
have.
they're in a different show. Like because I'm thinking like, yeah, Al Lewis is goofy, but like imagine if everyone was like at least doing something that bizarre.
Or if it was like a normal family, and they also have this relative who's a vampire, and it's never like, oh, the episode's about Grandpa being a vampire. It's like, no, Grandpa's just a vampire.
But Yvonne Carlo is essentially playing a Donna Reed character, so
Yeah.
therefore, because like she doesn't really have a personality.
So what comes off is that she's reading these lines that a kid might find funny because it's not what a normal person would say, but it's not an actual joke. It's almost like set up for someone to bring in a better punchline, but they
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah, and so compare her to Carolyn Jones as Morticia, and Morticia has an entire mystique warmth to her. Like she's I don't know, she's more of a presence. Like she's more of a singular like she has a passion in her, but she's also like, oh, and but like very like
Yeah.
it's just, I'm just making noises because it's just so different. I don't know.
It's very
So
different.
yeah. But it turns out that the crystal ball was right because we smash cut to the Russian trawler submarine. It's like a fishing boat.
It's a fishing
And
boat.
Herman is indeed leading them in a song
The Puffer
that
Belly song.
what is that? And first
Early
of all,
in the morning, go down to the station, see the little puffer bellies all lined up
no, but
in a row.
what's the pop 'em in the head?
Oh, that's Little Bunny Foo Foo. It's the same
Little bunny foo foo hopping through the forest.
same tune.
Shoot it, bop him in the head. Yeah, okay.
Picking up the field mice, popping them head. This is a
Yeah.
song. Puffer bellies are steam engines. and
Okay.
go down there and you see people, leave in trains. And he
Yeah.
sings it a lot, and the Russians love it, and they
Like he teaches them, he like sings it once, like to teach them, and then the music accompanies the second time. The Russians love it.
yeah.
And he's also changed out of his scuba gear, and now he's wearing like blue jeans and like a black like long sleeve kind of not a turtleneck, but like a black long sleeve tee, and then a jaunty neckerchief.
Because they happen to have giant clothes just in their
Herman's just like, wait, so where did the guy who owned these go? I don't see him around. No, but he's having a great time.
The US is talking about it. They say if he's a spy, we need to find out who's in charge of this. We got to talk to the director of espionage or whatever it is. And that's where you get that weird line that you said at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
Humpty Dumpty sat
Humpty
on a
Dumpty said, "Oh
wall.
well, the Cisco Kid is having a ball." Who is
Yeah.
Cisco Kid?
I just remember it was a Doobie Brothers song.
Oh, okay. That was like San Francisco. I meant to look it up, but like whatever.
I think it was like a cowboy thing. I should know that because Cisco Kid was they remade it with Jimmy Smits and Cheech Marin.
Oh,
So I should probably look that up.
but yeah, like they're trying to figure out like what is this spy? What is
Okay, so it was a Western character from film, radio, television, comic books.
okay?
I should have known that, right? And
Yeah.
Punch, Cisco
So
Kid and Punch.
they're trying to figure out like what this whole spy thing is. Like, why does he look like a monster? It's very
And
like
yes,
confusion.
what they end up with is it's a crude hoax.
Yeah.
And then the Russians, this one got me because it felt like it was supposed to be like political, like a dig at Russia. And so the Russians find out that the US is calling it a hoax. And then they say, "Oh, this is an embarrassment to our glorious leader. Who's our glorious leader this month?" And I was thinking about that. I'm
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, that has to refer to something. So
Does it?
I looked back, and uh at this point, uh Nikita Khrushchev had been premier for 10 and a half years. So it's not like they were going through leaders like every couple months.
Was there like an
Khrushchev was,
election or something? Or was there like a weird
there
turmoil
was
or anything?
there was a premiere who only lasted a half a year, but that was over a decade before this episode was written. And before
Well, I
that,
mean, that's kind of the
Stalin
speed that
lasted
news traveled
29
back
years.
then was.
Yeah, so I'm kind of like, which if you
Well,
compare it to the United States, we have a different leader every 4 to 8 years.
yeah, which
As
is
Stalin, I wrote this down. Stalin 29 years, Malenkov half a year, Khrushchev 11 years, Brezhnev 18 years. Like I
yeah.
would think that Russia has pretty stable, like
Yeah. Well,
long, not stable, but like long serving.
there was also a dig at like the US Department of Defense or something. We're like, hey, we need to give them a call. And it's like, oh, they're probably still out at lunch. It's 3 o'clock. But bum. Like, okay.
Yeah,
Your government day takes so long.
weird Munsters political jokes. I don't know. Maybe they hit different then. Maybe they're
Stick to Wolf Burgers, Munsters. But
they
they see there's like a news report and they see they show the paper, right? And they're like, wait, that's Herman.
yeah. So they how do they're wondering, oh, did the Russians brainwash him? And, and Grandpa goes, I don't want a son-in-law with a dishpan brain.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Russians are like, we're gonna off him, but we should have a party first because we really
Yeah.
like him.
Yeah. Which is nice. Russians are nice, right?
Yeah.
Is this when to find Herman, we get Lily and Grandpa in a rowboat and we
Yeah.
get the old classic like bullhorn stroke. There are certain things that when I see them, I'm reminded, yeah, this kind of thing was on TV all the time as a kid. And this is the kind of like setup that was used all the time on television. Like someone getting hit with a rolling pin or falling in quicksand, like those kind of conceits. And
Yeah.
the whole like stroke is a thing that was
Yeah,
just on TV all the time that I don't think anyone under the age of 35 would recognize as a trope.
because I mean, how many of us row crew in college? Like, yeah, if you're at
I
a good
clearly did.
school that has by water, maybe you have a crew team.
Oh,
Alfred
but
did.
also the bullhorn said like Transylvania or something on it too.
Uh,
That was funny. You laughed. That was a joke.
no, I'm just like, okay. I don't know. These jokes are not for adults. They're kids jokes. And then you get Herman dancing with the Russians who are having a party on the boat.
Yeah.
They're, playing the concertina, and then Herman tries to play the concertina and tears it apart because he's a
Yeah.
giant
Oh,
monster.
that's the accordion thing. Yeah, he
Yeah.
rips it apart.
He jumps through a table by accident.
Yeah.
Because he's
Well,
big,
because
big guy.
there was a guy
Monster
doing the Russian dance on the table.
on a
And then Herman's
table.
like, "Oh, I can do it," and then jumps and he just like smashes it. Like again, good job, Fred Gwynne. This is a
Physical
physically
comedy while
demanding.
wearing 4-inch platform shoes while
Yeah.
being 6'5".
Yeah, I mean, this is like a Naomi Smalls and the Sex and the City parody and All Stars 4, right, guys? Right? Right, everybody? Uh
Ugh.
anyway.
So
Well,
to wrap it up, Lily and Al Lewis, Grandpa, they board the boat, and Lily's upset that they were all worried about Herman, but he's here dancing with some playboys.
yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, but honey, one of them's a girl."
Oh,
He's
right.
like, "Oh my God, it's a yacht of corruption and revelry." The
Which,
Russian,
if it was the Adams family, they would love.
yeah.
They'd be like, "Ooh, are you going to shoot us? Oh, yes, please. Do this
Instead,
side."
instead, the Russians say, "That's what Americans are really like, party poopers." Uh, I don't know, man. This was a hard one to get through. I'm just like, yeah, it's the Munsters.
uh,
Munsters. You're not going to be surprised by anything.
what was the button?
Um, oh, they're in the living room,
Yeah.
and for some reason, like Marilyn's upset with Herman for dancing, and Grandpa's upset with him for dancing. Um,
Well, they're all like Jehovah's Witnesses. No, they're all Seventh Day Adventists.
you can't dance. It's the town. It's the living room from Footloose. Um, so Herman does said, "Honey, you gotta forgive me, like they do on TV every afternoon on Guiding Light." Which I actually thought was a pretty good line.
Ha ha! Munsters
So
wins.
so yeah. Um, then she says, "Just forget about your Russian friends and that singing and the dancing." She's really upset about the singing and dancing. She's really upset. Like she's not talking to him because he was on a boat
So
singing and dancing.
that's so
What
weird.
is this show? And then it ends with Herman puts on a little hat and whips out a concertina, and
Oh,
he
right.
plays a little jaunty song. I don't know, man. I'm not gonna say it broke me, but it was just like it was it was not much. We
So,
didn't get for our nickel.
subscribe to the Patreon where we will be doing an episode by episode recap podcast about the Munsters. 65 episodes. Uh,
And
I would
every
do it.
and every episode, I will remove one of my teeth, and we will see which one I enjoy more.
Oh my God. Are you ready for some must-have facts?
Hells
Oh
yeah!
my God. 19.5 million people watched this episode of television.
I believe it.
So yeah, but it ranked at number 34 for the week. So, not enough to get the top 5 shows of this week were number 5, Hogan's Heroes, show that we absolutely have to do. Number 4, The Dick Van Dyke Show. Number 3, Gomer Pyle USMC. Number 2, Bewitched, which was a blockbuster right out the gate. And number 1, Bonanza. That's what people don't ever people don't remark on the fact that Bewitched also debuted the same week as Munsters and Addams Family.
and it really popular in the ratings.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, witches, kooks, and creeps, and all the same. We're very spooky in 1965,
19 and
64.
1963, none of that.
No,
No, no.
yeah, the X-Men weren't selling that well.
In
Exactly.
1963,
Yeah, the strangest teens of all. They were like, no, no.
is that when they went into reprints?
No, no, this is when they debuted, but I mean, they didn't start selling
Oh.
well until after they were canceled in 69. Um, but anyway, so the CBS Thursday night lineup was The Munsters, followed by Gilligan's Island, followed
Kid.
by My Three Sons, and then Thursday Night at the Movies.
Ah, where you had a chance of maybe watching a Yvonne DiCarlo film.
Oh, well, yeah. And the night that this aired, the movie was The Counterfeit Trader from 1962. That's traitor, not trader. And the synopses in the newspaper reads an excellent espionage story based on true life incidents that maintains a high level of suspense throughout. William Holden, Lily Palmer, and a superb international supporting cast recreate the drama of intelligent agents operating in Europe during World War II, and on location photography heightens the pace and the action. There's nothing James Bondish about this collection of spies. Color.
It's an early role for Klaus Kinski. I'll just look that
Oh,
up.
when did the first James Bond movie come out? 64?
Which one are you talking
Doctor No.
about?
Because it's weird to get a dig in on James Bond in this blurb about the counterfeit trader.
Dr. No is 1962, but the original Casino
Royale.
Royale, the original one of that was actually I don't know.
So
Because
it is
there's
interesting that like because we all think of like when we think spy movie, James Bond absolutely defines the spy movie. So it's interesting to see this article from 1965 posit James Bond as like a new take, like a newfangled take on the spy movie.
I'm trying to look for the
Counterfeit
original.
traders where it's at.
I'm looking for the original Casino Royale, 1954. Okay,
Okay.
because that was like it was a TV movie
No.
with
Yeah, so it's just this whoever wrote this blurb doesn't like James Bond. Thinks it's silly.
well, maybe I don't, there's a lot of that spy-fi kind of stuff. I don't know.
It is.
People have opinions, Brett, and I have an opinion too about this Munsters. And I thought that it was
Great.
weak. It
Great.
was
What are you
weak.
watching tonight then? On ABC, we got Shindig. Last year's Shindig idol, Jerry Lee Lewis, leads the list of rockers tonight, along with the piano punching singer Billy Preston, ornamental former Billboard girl turned vocalist Raquel Welch, Mike Clifford, the Blossoms, and the Wellingtons. All on
Oh,
ABC Shindig.
is
On
there? Okay.
CBS, The Munsters. Herman's expressions of cheer and sadness will endear him to the younger set, despite the absurdity of the plot. It's a silly story about Herman going scuba diving and ending up on a Russian fishing trawler, but the sight of Herman happily dancing and singing with the Russian crew is ingratiating. I like that back then they got to mix synopses with reviews. On in an NBC, Daniel Boone, The Tortoise and the Hare. Robert Logan becomes a series co-star. The all-important race between Boonesboro and the Creek Indians looks bad for settlers because Jericho Jones, Logan, refuses to run. So are you watching Shindig, The Munsters, or Daniel Boone?
Answer me this question. How old am I?
Ooh, it's
Because the answer changes.
1965. What,
Not
what
born
year
yet.
would you like to be born?
Uh, Pick a number. Just pick a number. Like
Well, I always think 1944 would be a great year to be born.
I'd say let's go
So you're
1951.
21.
Okay, if I'm 21, Shindig all the way. Billy
What is the
Preston,
cutoff
Jerry Lee Lewis.
between? Wait, so is Daniel Boone younger or older than the Munsters?
Daniel Boone is same age. I
I
would
feel
go same.
like so you would start as in the life cycle of a TV viewer, you would start Munsters, graduate to Daniel Boone, and then end up at Shindig.
And yeah,
And then after that, like reading a book or something, because I don't think adults watched any of
unless
this.
I was afraid of monsters, then it would be David Boone, Daniel Boone,
David? Yeah.
David Boone.
David Boone.
An entertainment lawyer from Sherman Oaks.
I was thinking this is Billy Preston long before the Beatles.
Yeah.
So like
I
once
mean,
he
it's 1965, so
65, so he's at
yeah,
least like
you've got another 3 years before he's
yeah,
playing them.
wild.
But
But so
Raquel
I
Welch,
Raquel Welch also, that's wild.
yeah,
I did talk, in researching for my Hayden Rourke book, I did talk to people who were men who like who pointed out like, oh no, yeah, when you were a kid that age, anything remotely science fiction, I watched. So it was like
yeah,
Munsters, absolutely. Like, did I like it? Like, was it good? I don't know. It's a Dracula on television. It's a vampire. It's just more fun to call them Draculas. Uh, but like, yeah, so I think like, kind of like when we were kids, and it's like, I'm gonna see Spawn in theaters, okay? I don't read Spawn. I don't know anything about him other than what I see in Wizard Magazine, but this is a comic book movie, and I'm going.
yeah. We got excited about the silliest things,
Tank
like
Girl.
going nuts about why can't I watch the Roger Corman Fantastic Four?
Yeah. The Generation X TV movie.
I've never seen that. I still
Oh, I
never.
have it on.
I'm sure you have it on DVD, if not VHS. Well,
Yeah,
you
no,
have it
I
on
have
VHS.
it's in here. It's in
Uh,
here. I
ah,
had the original VHS from where I recorded it, and then hand drew the box.
whew.
And I then also clipped out all of the TV Guide mentions from it that week.
We
Anyway,
went crazy for I remember going crazy for the Captain America movie
oh yeah, with
from
slap punch stick.
no, not
Reb,
the Red Brown, not the Red Brown one.
that was
Uh
the late 70s one,
the one
right?
with Salinger.
Okay, yeah.
Salinger's kid, Matthew Salinger.
I remember I rented that.
Where they had to get the rubber ears on his mask. But what would you be watching between those three? If you are, let's say,
If
oh,
I'm
13.
21,
You're
if I'm
13.
13, I'm watching Shindig.
Okay.
I think I'm in the Munsters if I am 10 or younger.
I'd go
Yeah.
for maybe 12 or younger, but yeah.
Yeah, I got into popular music like pretty young. So,
And I was still really into monster stuff, so
I'm gonna be watching Shindig at
I might have been
11.
watching the monsters if I was 12.
So, on IMDb, 184 Munstites rated this a 7.6 out of 10. Now, Ethan, would you go higher, lower, or reminder, you gave the Make Room for Daddy episode an 8.4. Because I'm going to keep track of this. I don't know why it took me so long to realize this is how we should do it.
Well, 7.6 is pretty high for me. But I'm gonna look to two people here. I'm gonna look to Brian Fuller and I'm gonna look to Rob Zombie, who probably saw these episodes when they were growing up, and they're like,
Yes.
"Oh man, this is excellent television. I should make my own version late when I'm an adult."
Ugh.
So it hits different when you're a little kid and you remember it years later. You're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, the Munsters is so good. It's so fantastic show." And so that's probably where those numbers are pretty high.
Yeah,
People
it's
who
all
are like, I
nostalgic
remember
people.
this when I was a kid. I have fond memories of this. So I'm going to give it a 7.6. I would not give it a 7.6. Like overall, I'd give it like maybe like a 5.9, but not a 6. It is like, never mind. You just ask me the one. What would you give it?
Oh my God. So you gave Make Room for Daddy an 8.4. This a 5.9. Keep
Yeah.
those metrics in mind for next week. I gave Make Room for Daddy an 8.3, so I guess I should give this a 5.8, but I actually think I would give it I so in the Monsters defense, I have seen better Monsters episodes than this
Okay.
one. So 6.1.
Okay. We differ, but not by that much.
No, I mean it's not. It's fine, but God. Who had the must-see performance though?
Oh, Fred Gwynne.
Yeah, you give it to Fred Gwynne, I'll give it to Al Lewis.
Oh, you give it to Al Lewis.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, they both deserve to get.
and they're the ones who are most associated with the show. Al
Yeah.
Lewis kept doing this for years, and people will always remember. There was the story where Fred Gwynne was up for the dad in Punky Brewster, and the audition,
Oh,
and the casting director said, "And now here we have auditioning Herman Munster." And he's like, the hell I am. And he walked out.
Oh no, Fred.
Didn't call him Fred Gwynne, called him Herman Munster. And so
Which
he
is,
could
it's
still
wild
get,
that he could be typecast because he actually, like, he's in full makeup, like out of the Munster makeup, like you can tell it's him, but it isn't,
yeah.
like, there is a disconnect there. He is not immediately recognizable.
And you can see him in other things. He did My Cousin Vinny. He was great in that. He
Oh
did
right, yeah,
Pet Cemetery. He actually had a really good career as a children's book illustrator and writer.
good.
I read a couple when I was growing up, A Chocolate Mousse for Dinner and The King Who Reigned.
Oh wow.
Two books about puns for
Then
kids.
yeah,
But,
that's okay. He should have written for the Munsters.
he was a Harvard Lampoon
Yes, he was a Harvard humorist.
alumnus.
Why is he not punching up the scripts? Must other people see this episode of television?
Nah,
Eh, for
nah.
summer, for like summer feels. So with that,
Yeah, then yes. If you want to like feel that good summer vibe, you want to get on the beach with the Munsters, with the coffin lid surfboard, and va va voom Yvonne Craig in a bathing suit and a Martha Washington hat, then yes, it's
yeah.
sure it is summertime. But if you're like, hey, I'm gonna call the boys over, gonna crack open a couple cold ones, gonna make ourselves some popcorn. What are we gonna watch on TV? The Munsters? Holy no, no, that's
There
not
are
happening.
people that would be super into that.
There's certain shows that I'd be like, hey, do you want to come over and watch a certain thing? And be like, yeah, this would be
The
great.
Munsters is a great show to put on in the background because visuals on point usually.
Yeah.
Or just the theme on a loop. Yeah, no, I think there are better Munsters episodes to watch for sure. Paul Lind is in some that are very good because Paul Lind's great. But yeah,
Holland is in a couple. He takes over for another actor. I'm just gonna look it up real quick
he
because
plays a doctor. It was a Herman's
yeah,
weight loss episode.
yeah, because Harvey, I want to say Harvey Korman is in three
Mm,
episodes, and then Paul Lynde kind of takes over three episodes.
I love that trajectory.
But also you got John Fiedler from the
Oh
Airplane
yeah.
and John Carradine.
See? Yeah, there are other episodes of Monsters, all streaming on Peacock. Plow through them. We, of course, will be plowing through them all, every single episode, analyzed in detail on Patreon. Please subscribe to the Patreon.
Do that, Brent.
If we get enough subscribers, absolutely, we'll do something that I will definitely do something that is dangerous to our mental health.
That will hurt me on a
Next
psychic level.
in next week, well, in 2 weeks, when we come back for the 1970s, we'll be talking about the Brady Bunch episode, Past the Taboo, which is part 2 of the Hawaii trilogy, and only part 2.
Only
Season
part
4,
two.
episode 2.
Because it's got Vincent Price.
This is the Vincent Price one. So, I mean, you know what? We might watch the episode before and after just for context to enlighten our conversation, but we're not going to talk about those 2 episodes beat for beat. No, 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 no. We're past the taboo only because we just did a whole lot of
and,
episodes
and you've got to stop me from talking from info dumping about Vincent Price because
and
I absolutely love
and
Vincent.
tiki content.
And tiki, I won't even go into the tiki content unless
Yeah.
you ask. But yeah. Woo.
And I will talk a lot about Mr. Brady's tiny, tiny swimsuit, and Robert Reed's status as a gay icon and person who hated the Brady Bunch. But yeah, that is in 2 weeks. And if you want to hear more from us next week, please subscribe to the Patreon, patreon.com/musthaveseen.tv, where you will get Must Have Now TV episode 2 dropping next Thursday.
Well, I think that wraps it up.
Yeah, I mean, hey, thanks everybody for listening. Thanks for subscribing. We'll probably do the thanks to subscribers at some point once we get like a couple more or whatever. We could say thank you.
Yeah, thanks to Acast for hosting us.
Yeah, thanks to Fred Gwynne for wearing all those layers and getting so wet.
Feel free to like and
review,
and drop us some comments on YouTube.
Yes. Subscribe on YouTube. Basically, wherever you're interacting with us, please, I beg you, subscribe, like, follow, comment.
Yeah,
do
because
everything.
we're on a regular schedule now,
We're
and
thirsty.
we're on a regular schedule. We've got the Patreon going, and we're fundraising to hire an editor. So
And make this a professional endeavor.
endeavor.
Endeavor, baby. Toodaloo, everybody.
Take care.
Humpty Dumpty and the Cisco Kid.